Hey guys, I wanted to make a video about 10.1 Arcane and just kind of like act as a guide for returning players or just people who have been playing but not necessarily been keeping up with the like the theory crafting and behind the scenes stuff for Arcane. So first of all, going into 10.1, we're going to be doing somewhat similar to these talents. We're still going to be we can still stick to the old talents that we used to play, where you'd have like resonance talented in and then 1 point in missiles for a single target, and like you change that point to the barrage cleave for a cleave. One thing that's been interesting is that we've been like running some sims, and it seems that dropping resonance and barrage execute cleave for the 2 points in missiles is actually a viable choice. You should sim it yourself with your own gear as you gear, but for pure single target, this is quote unquote viable. So make sure it's not the only choice, but just keep it in mind, I guess, while we play. Yeah, and then as for like cleave, it's the same usual stuff. So you would drop 2 points in this, you'd put 1 point in resonance, 1 point in this, and then you can change mana adept back to barrage cleave or barrage execute. Sorry. Um, Other than that, yeah, mana gem, nothing crazy. As for gameplay, I'm going to be mostly talking about like the changes in the gameplay while assuming what you already know. So if you're not super familiar with Arcane already, I do recommend you check my mana gem guide. There's like a little annotation thing that I put for a correction, which points to the comments. But other than that, that video is basically up to date still. So I'm going to be assuming you have a good base knowledge of Arcane. But outside of that, let's kind of get into it here. We're mostly going to be playing mana gem. I don't really foresee Harmony being strong, but yeah. So we start off with our normal Evocate, right? Typical opener, Orb into AB. Obviously, in a real fight, you can AB into Orb because you can precast both, right? Doesn't matter. And then, you would Double Lust. After your Double Lust, you apply your Nether Tempest, and then you go into your Rune. And you do like this like pre-burn opener, right? If you're not sure why I'm doing this rune here and doing this pre-burn opener, you should check out my new opener guide from a while back. But this is nothing new. Spamming ABs. If you get second clear casting, you send one. Keep spamming ABs until you have like 5 GCDs left. You can see my number here. Once you have 5 or 4, it's fine. You start Radiant Spark, and that's when you do your like 1, 2, 3, right? Apply Nether Tempest, and then you refresh with your rune with your Surge. Notice I didn't miss any GCDs on rune. Surge, Arcane Blast, Barrage. So from 10.0, if you're back and you're kind of new to Mana Gem, with Mana Gem, you always do the extra Arcane Blast into Barrage after your Surge. You always do that Q. Even in Execute, it's worth doing pretty much. Technically, in Execute, some people will say it's a slight loss. Personally, I always do it just to be safe. But yeah, I think it's that safety might not be as needed. But especially, obviously, if you don't play the Execute talent, then you would always Q, right? If you play the Execute talent and you're in Execute, it might be some value to not Q the Arcane Blast and just do Barrage alone, but yeah. Anyway, we do our touch right, we're going to be doing our normal stuff. And something you'll be noticing me doing here is that I'm canceling my missiles early. So you might ask yourself, well, Forgy, why are you doing this? It seems that now that we have so much excess mana in our rotation, and the increase in power to Arcane Blast compared to Arcane Barrage, or sorry, compared to Arcane Missiles, the value of Arcane Blasting has gone up quite dramatically. Both because of, like I said, the excess mana that we have now, and also like with all the changes that have come in our talents, the increase in mastery, with Prodigious Savant, Blizzard tuning knobs. Arcane Blast has just gained enough value that it's worth to actually cancel your missiles now with an Arcane Blast. You might ask, oh, how do I need a macro? Do I do this? What do I do? Do I press escape? It's very simple. It's nothing complicated. You just press missiles, and then you just press Arcane Blast. You just pretend that missiles is not longer than like the 1 GCD, and you just, missile, blast, blast, missile. You don't need to wait for the channel. Super easy, super, like, you don't need to think about it. And you do this as long as you're above 30% mana. So as long as you're above 30%, you can cancel, or not cancel, but, start casting your Arcane Blasts early after your missile casts. Yeah, as long as you're above 30%. In cooldowns, out of cooldowns, doesn't matter. As long as you're above 30, you're good to go. Yeah, we're gonna keep doing this. Notice that you don't barrage at the end of your Touch of the Magi, right? That's not a thing we do. In Double Lust, if you want, you can barrage at the end of your Surge. But you only do this in Double Lust if you're worried about your mana. Because as we know, Barrage is a DPS loss to cast. Like you might say, well, the damage it does is good, and it's like, yeah, it is good. But then you have to Orb and double Arcane Blast that are not full charges, which is really weak compared to Arcane Blast at 4 charges. So if we don't need to worry about mana, we don't do that Barrage. But if we do need to worry about mana, we can do this Barrage because it saves us a little bit. Yeah. Do your shifting power, do Arcane Blasts. Once Touch of the Magi is 10 seconds remaining, you can go into your mini burn. Since the increased duration of Radiant Spark, you actually could Radiant Spark into Rune of Power in your mini burn, or you can do Rune into Radiant. They're about the same, but I believe, like, I haven't really like ran the sims on it, but realistically, like if you think about it, casting Radiant Spark into Rune means that, you know, we get one extra global cooldown in Rune of Power. So I don't see why you wouldn't. This is only something you really care about in your mini burn, because in your big burn, you know, you're already kind of wasting a bit of Rune of Power anyway, because you know you're applying your surge early, you're dropping a new rune when your old rune is still up. But otherwise, yeah, in your mini burn you can Radiant into Rune and you'll have plenty of time due to the extra 2 seconds. We do our usual in your mini burn for Arcane Blast, Nether Tempest, Blast Barrage, right? Touch of the Magi, missiles. Now, when it comes to like presence of mind as well, one thing that has been noted, and this is something I mentioned a long time ago as well, even in my like Tarot's commentary all the time ago in December, is that using Presence of Mind to snipe Rune of Power is actually still worth it compared to Touch of the Magi. They're both options, and you know I don't like to script my Presence of Minds because you'll end up using them for movement a lot of times. But just know that using Presence of Mind for end of Rune of Power, like for example right here, you know when there's less than 1 GCD, it's a good idea. I mean here I don't have any, but you get the point. Yeah. Just keep going. You finish your touch. Touch is a little longer nowadays. You can see me here palm the end of the touch. That's fine because that's where it came back. And yeah, you keep going. And this is not something new, but I see some people make this mistake a lot. Like people make this mistake all the time, even very, very high ranking mages. The way you evocate is the following. When your touch of the Magi is 20 seconds remaining, you press evocate. It's that simple. If you need to evocate before, due to like your you can evocate as early as Touch of the Magi is 15 seconds, or 25 seconds, sorry. But otherwise, if you're not worried about mana and you know nothing is a concern, you don't need to like think about like downtime and stuff like that. Evocate when touch is 20 seconds. You might say, well, why would you do that? You have a long time to your burn. Well, after you evocate, Rune of Power is still like, you know, not ready yet and you're going to be wasting time. It doesn't matter. There's a long story to explain, but just trust me when I say your Siphon Storm will last as much time as it needs to last. Yeah. Don't ignore this Nether Tempest. I only do this Nether Tempest to stay in combat with this dummy. But yeah, after your Evocate is done, you have like a few seconds to just pump out some Arcane Blasts. I like to hold on to any clear casting missiles here until right before my rune is ready, because then you throw your missiles and now you have another precision for your big burn, and now my big burn is a little stronger. And yeah, you just kind of go into it again, right? 3 into another Tempest Surge, Arcane Blast, Barrage, Touch. As for Mana Gem usage, nothing new. Once again, we still use Mana Gem with our Arcane Blast after the Surge. You do not Mana Gem before your Surge ever. Ever. If you Mana Gem before your Surge, you need to go look at yourself in the mirror real quick, because that's atrocious gameplay. Always Mana Gem after Surge, or basically you might as well not Mana Gem at all. The best way to do this is to macro your Mana Gem to your Arcane Blast. Press that button. You know, you have like a separate Arcane Blast button. For me, you can see it's over here, Shift 9. So after Surge, I just press that button. It pops both of them together. Simple as. And then yeah, I mean, we're kind of just rinse repeating, right? I'm just kind of including this to show you the non-double S version. We do the thing where we're canceling, right? This is a good example where if I had my Presence of Mind, if I had Presence of Mind available here, this is a good time to press Presence of Mind because Rune is expiring. And what you'll notice is if I actually press Presence of Mind, I'll snipe both the end of Rune and the end of Touch of the Magi. Yeah. Once again, I talked about this in my Tarot's commentary. If you want a more in-depth explanation on that, you can check that video all that time ago. Notice here I didn't do anything with the end of surge because I'm not worried about mana, right? As soon as your surge is done, you're shifting power, and you get like 1 or 2 casts off, pretty much just the 1 missile, and then you go into your mini burn straight away. There's a little less time now between our big burn and our mini burn because A, surge is longer with the tier set, the new one. Touch is longer with like Blizzard tuning. Yeah, so we basically just get like 1 cast in between now. Typically, like I said, it's just a missile and then you go into your mini burn straight away. So you can Radiant Spark into Rune, and then you do the 4, and the Tempest, Arcane Blast, Barrage. Nothing fancy. If you have touch or you have presence of mind, you could use it there, or you can use it at the end of touch. Yeah, fast forward. I didn't get presence of mind there, unfortunately. But yeah, that's basically it. You'll notice here, touch of the Magi 20 seconds, straight away, Evocate, right? Don't delay. Do not delay. Getting these Arcane Blasts after the Evocate are very important because it can proc Impetus, it can proc like, potentially Nether Precision if you get a missile proc and you can use it. And there's some stuff where it basically makes our mana easier, like it makes our mana easy to deal with. Yeah. One thing to note at the very, very end, there is a kind of new rotation with the 4-piece that I will not get into much in this video because it's still, receiving some work, but I'll cover that in another video. But that rotation, while it is probably better than this one once you have the new 4-piece, it's slightly more complicated to play, requires more uptime and more demanding gameplay, and it's not that much better, it's just, it is a little bit better, like, 2-3%, at least so far. But yeah, I'll get into that in my next video, whenever that is, hopefully soon. But yeah, thank you for watching. Good luck in the new season.